Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Manifesting with the Masters. This is Jen Mazer, the Queen of Manifestation, and we are talking about manifesting a new world in the age of Aquarius. And this has been one of my favorite series over the past 13 years. I get to bring together some of the world's leading experts on manifestation here to share with you how you can tap into the laws of the universe and access the unique gifts that are waiting just for you. And I know so many people are struggling in different ways right now, and these tools weren't taught in school. And so I really wanted to bring everyone out here to share their wisdom with you so that you can become the master of your own life. And you get to be a part of this beautiful shift happening on the planet. So it's my mission to inspire you to make your dreams real so you can experience infinite abundance and true wisdom and ultimately change the world with your unique gifts. And so I am honored and thrilled to have the amazing Lena Stevens with us today. She's the co-founder of the Power Path School of Shamanism. Many of you actually get her monthly forecasts on the Power Path. Um, Lena, I'm so excited that you are here. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, you're so welcome. This is exciting.
Yay! So, if you're not familiar with her, she is an internationally known teacher and shamanic practitioner. She studied with people, for over 10 years from different healing traditions in South America and Native Americans, Siberia, and Northern Europe. And Lena's taught people. Um, what I love is she brings together business and the intuitive, and she's going to talk about some of the shamanic practices and how we can tie that in so we can have shamanism for success in business today. She's also the co-author of The Secrets of Shamanism, How to Tap the Spirit Power Within, and so much more. And you also have met her husband, Jose, as a part of this conference. So definitely, if you haven't watched his interview yet, check out his as well. And Lena, I'm so excited to dive into talking about how we can weave in, I guess I should say, shamanism into our business success. So I just would love for you to share a little bit of your own history before we get into how we can apply these things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have a background. I have a very eclectic background, in art, music, and then in business. I was in real estate for many years and kind of cut my teeth on, how to bring more spiritual practices into daily life as it would affect the way I did business, the way that I, manifested what I wanted to manifest, etc. And I'm a very practical person, and I really like working with the physical world, So
Yeah.
I of course, I have a deep root in the spiritual and in shamanism. And I did a training way back in the early 70s that was about opening intuition and, delving into the psychic world, because that's
Yeah.
what it was called in those days. And so I really learned a lot about energy, about how energy works, and about how to draw from the spirit world, which is all just energy. It's the ether, it's the astral plane, so to
Yeah.
speak, where all of this creativity comes from, and how to actually bring it into the physical so that you can manifest the way you want. So my interest has always been in teaching or helping people to understand where that creativity, where that energy comes from, and then being able to bring it in. But in order to do that, you have to have some kind of a container, you have to have some sort of a structure. So what I find a lot is that people have, okay, so they have, their spiritual practices, and they get up in the morning and they do their shamanic practices and all of that. And then they go to work, you know.
And it's
It's
separate.
like it's completely separate. So then they come back from work and they go, oh, okay, well, I never have time to, like do my spiritual work. So, and there's a real kind of a separation, I find, that people feel like, okay, spirituality is like over here, and then business is over here. And they somehow don't meet. And the more spiritual you get, the more resistance you have to the business world, to the financial aspect. It's like, oh, we don't want to deal with that, right? So, what my kind of personal interest has always been is in blending the two. Like my motto is like, you should treat your life, your personal life, as a business. If everybody treated their personal lives as a business, everything would work better, you know.
It's so true.
Your family, your daily schedule, your wants and your needs and your desires and your discipline, everything, if you treated your life as a business, instead of having this resistance to business and then, not having a good foundation or a good container for your life. Okay. So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that have very messy lives, but they're very separate, from what they do in business. So, so many years ago, past life, we're talking in 1970s really, and 80s, I was involved in real estate as part of what I was doing out in the world. And so I was very interested in kind of getting together maps for people and tools that they would, test out. Like, well, maybe try this. Well, you don't feel like you're being supported here. Well, let's bring in some allies. Let's see what kind of a container you're setting for yourself, what kind of relationship you have with your
Mm.
clients, or, with whatever it is that you're doing. And so out of that came a whole system really that I've used over the years. And I just recently kind of resurrected it. And with a couple of other colleagues, including Jose, we put together this program called Pivot, okay, which is not just for business, but it really is structured so that it produces these maps for people to use so that you can, track where your success is going and basically what isn't working.
Hmm.
Because the truth is that if somebody's life is going very well, then they don't really ask the questions. There's no curiosity there. It's just, okay, everything's going well and I'm, going through my life or my business, and I'm manifesting exactly how I want to manifest. The minute something goes wrong and people go, this isn't working, or I just, I don't know, really know what to do, that's when the curiosity comes in. And people go, okay, what else can I do? What am I missing? Like, what should I try that's different?
Hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
enough of a.
That resonates. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people are like, well, listening to this, not everything is working, right? Not all the things are
Well, and
moving.
especially now when business as usual is no longer business as usual.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear about that.
Yeah.
So really, what I'm saying is, don't act out of fear. Like, get out of the fear. This is an opportunity to actually, move into a new landscape for creating and understanding. I think where we're all going as a species is to another level of understanding how energy works,
Yes.
and actually where these ideas come from and how we can manifest them in the physical.
Yeah. So we get to be innovators as business owners and create this new world where we're in harmony with
Yeah,
how
and
we,
not just business, but in your own life.
yeah.
In your own life, like looking at your life and going, okay, I have all these bits and pieces of my life, including, what I do for work and where my income comes from and, my family and all of that, my desires.
Hmm.
And, how many people have compromised themselves over the years to corporate structures or to having to do something that isn't really of their heart, you know?
Right.
And how many people start something just from an idea in their head, or they're told, oh, you should go do this. Oh, you want to study that? Well, here's the curriculum. Here's the structure. So they're not creating their own container. They're jumping into somebody else's container.
Yeah. So talk about how we can create our own containers.
Okay, so containers is one of my favorite things to talk about because a container is the structure, the energetic structure of what holds your intentions. Okay. So, way back when in the 70s, Jose and I were always playing around with this idea of prosperity. Okay, how can we be more prosperous? And so we would listen to tapes and, you write your intentions and, that you put things up on the wall and you read them every day. And it was all very mental, right? And it's all about like, oh, do this, do that, like just the mental, the sort of the mental thread of information that goes out or your intention that goes out. And it was not balanced with the feminine, it wasn't balanced with, well, where is it going to land? Like, what is your foundation? What's your home? So, a container is kind of like your home. It's like, okay, I'm going to move into this structure, into this house, and this is going to be my home, and it will support me in a certain way.
Mm.
So, a container for your business has to include certain things. It has to include support people, it has to include your really your desire, like, yeah, this is what I want. Okay. And then it has to include a plan. It has to include your allies. It has to, include just whatever it needs as a nest. It's your nest, basically. Like a bird doesn't just throw eggs out, onto the field. A bird creates a nest first and then puts the eggs in there and then you have to wait for right timing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of little pieces that go into all of this. And
Yeah.
the container, one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of container is the balance part. Okay, so you have to have, it's like a three-legged stool is not that stable. Okay, but a four-legged stool or a four legs on a table is stable. So you've got to have stability. So those four pillars, they are, those are positions that can be filled by people or can be filled by, information, or it can be filled by, your desire, or it can be filled by what supports you financially. So there, if you understand kind of the structure of how the universe works, and this is where the shamanism comes in. Like, just look around. It's very obvious that we have four seasons, right?
Yeah.
That creates a quadrant. It creates a structure. It's the container of the year. So, and it
Mm.
has each one of these um, directions, or they have certain qualities.
Right. Four directions, four seasons, four elements.
Seasons, four elements, all of that.
Mm.
So you've got the four, and it's a very stable thing. So how many people are, out in business and they only have like one person with them, or it's a threesome, and nothing works, because it's not a stable situation.
Mm. Okay. So talk to us more about that. We should have at least four people on our team and enforce.
Yeah, teams, it's like
Hmm.
understanding your teams,
Yeah.
right? And it has, and if you start to think about, okay, well, what is the structure of four seasons? What's the structure of the four directions? What are their qualities? How can I bring that information or that wisdom in to my container that I'm setting up here, because this is what I want to do. Okay. So I'm going to just give you an example. So let's say that you're an artist. Okay. And you really want to be an artist. You're tired of waitressing tables, right?
Yeah.
You want to start making money as an artist. So you go, okay, I'm gonna set up a business as an artist, but you really don't kind of have, you just don't know where it's going to go. Okay. So you have to set up a container. You've got to think about, okay, what is it that I love about my art? Like, what do I really want to do? So some people are really good teachers, right? They're a good art teacher. Some people are really good at illustration. Some people are really good at producing something that can just get, can get manufactured. Some people are just fine artists and they really need just a gallery, right?
Yeah.
So you have to put some kind of combination of thought process and personal desire into
Mm.
it. Okay. And it has to come from a place where you're not trying to figure out how it's going to happen. You have to just go, this is who I am. This is my gift or my medicine to the world. Okay. So I need to create a container around that so that it will support this medicine that I want to, share with the world. Right.
Yeah.
Then you start to bring in, you go, okay, I need some allies, and of course, this is where the shamanism comes in. So maybe you do a process where you say, well, who out there wants to help, wants to help me get this off the ground, wants to help me move into my life task work. Okay. And so through some kind of process, maybe you get a raven, maybe you get a squirrel, maybe you get, multiple, maybe you get some guide that comes to you, your great great grandmother, whatever. I mean, it's whatever comes in, right?
Right. So you can just ask when you went. So for people who are new to this, if it's
Just
like, well, where do I find my allies, spiritual allies, or,
spiritual out. So those are the unseen. Okay, so you got to bring in the unseen help. So
yes.
this is where it starts because what you're doing is you're actually tapping into the what I would call the spirit world or the astral plane where all this raw material, it's all just energy, right? So you've got to bring that energy into some kind of form. You call it in, you call in maybe the four directions, maybe you call in certain aspects of the different seasons, maybe you call in um, some of the like spirit of fire or earth or air, and then you call in your allies. So you're starting to create the container energetically first, and then you see who shows up. You go, okay, so now I need somebody to come in that has information. I need somebody to come in that maybe will support me financially, and that could be anything. That could be somebody that says, hey, I have a studio I'm not using. Why don't you just use that? Or, oh, I'm, putting together this thing over here and I want to support you or whatever. So
Yeah.
instead of second guessing how that's going to work, you set up the container and then with confidence, you basically observe what what starts to come in. And it's pretty amazing,
Mm.
and you make sure that you've got your four pillars, and that even if the people who come into your life at that time are not going to be the ones that are sustainable forever, but you have to start at least. So maybe there's a friend who's an artist and they go, well, yeah, I'm totally in support of you. Okay, so then you go, okay, so then you can be part of my four, just for now, because I need some stability for this container so that the energy can start to flow in.
Right. And then if you were running a business, like you're an entrepreneur, would you have four people on your leadership team, like your top four that then kind of,
Right? And you have
okay.
to make sure that you don't just have everybody that has the same talent, right?
Right.
So you've got to have some diversity there. And that, of
Hmm.
course, depends on, what it is that you're doing, what
Hmm.
kind of business that you have.
So I want to go a little bit deeper into the question of the allies part, because just in case people are feeling stuck and they want to ask, um, are can you journal? Should you do a guided meditation? Is it
Usually a guided meditation.
yeah.
Like a lot of times, well, sometimes people say, they ask me, well, how do you get your information for the monthly forecast? Okay, that's a question that always comes up because it's like, are you an astrologer? Are you a psychic? What what is it? And I say, well, it's kind of a little bit of everything, but it's my own intuition and it's my own structure that I have put together for that information to come in. So often what I'll do is I will do a process like I'll walk, I have a labyrinth in my backyard. So I'll walk the labyrinth, and when I get into the middle of the labyrinth, I just ask for a word. I just and the word comes like the theme. And then that word starts to unpack itself. And then I get images and I get, flow, the information starts to flow in. So it's the same process. Now you can do a drum journey. Okay.
Mhm.
This is a very basic shamanic experience. You can even download, a tape or an audio of a drum journey so that you don't necessarily even have to have a drum. You can just do it with the intention that you want to connect, or you're bringing in an ally for a particular reason, for a specific purpose. So it's not just journeying for like, oh, okay, a look-see. It's You
Right.
have to set the intention. So it's for a specific purpose that then you would be saying, okay, I'd like for an ally to come in to help me find the right gallery, okay, for my art. Just using that
Yeah.
as an example again. Or or somebody who's actually looking for work, looking for a job. You can bring in allies for that too, because it's not always just reading the want ads. You
Right.
know, it's well, it's going to come to me somehow. So why don't I just ask for help
Mm.
from the unseen world?
Yeah. And so this is for anyone, whether you're in business or not. You can ask for a specific ally in
Absolutely,
something that you're manifesting, something specific.
absolutely, absolutely. The other thing that we go over a lot in this pivot program is, the development and the building of
Mm.
community of your work community or your home community or the community that you're in, and how what the cycle of that community goes through, as it's developing. Okay, the container for a business or for a family or whatever, and understanding community, because we're coming from an imprint, you know, for thousands of years. It's been very hierarchical. Okay,
Yes.
so that's what's falling apart now. It's like the tower is is collapsing, and the pieces are going to come together in a very, very different way. And so to understand how that fits in community and how you can kind of take that, map of community and superimpose that onto your family or your business or whatever it is, your life, okay,
Mm.
so that you can understand the whole thing of community and how that works.
Yeah, I think this is really important what you're saying because people, in this series have been saying it in different ways, right? But this kind of falling apart to restructure in a new way. And
That's right.
so I want to hear more about, just what you see as what's happening and the future of where this is going and what we can do to create what we want.
Well, and I always say this, okay, is that don't worry so much about what's going on out there, okay? The work is really in your personal life. So take advantage of this chaotic, destructive, artisan energy that's happening right now this year, and look to your own environment, look to your own landscape, look to your own relationships, your own home, your own desires. What have you been putting off? Where have you been compromised? What needs to be improved in your life? And start there, because that's going to have a ripple effect. Okay. And What I'm noticing also is that there's a lot of people who really, at this point, want to be with those that are on the same page.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to see a lot of migrations, where people are going to find themselves in community that really speaks to them or that where they can actually collaborate with each other. So
Mm,
collaboration is where we're going, but it's not, it's just a bunch of pieces right now. It's kind of like we had this giant castle built out of Lego pieces, right? And now we have just taken a baseball bat and smashed the entire Lego castle. And there's Lego pieces all over the place. And
mm,
so it doesn't work to think about collecting all those pieces and putting them back in the same way. Okay, we have to build something new, something different. So that's what this year is all about. And it's
yeah.
it's not easy and it's not going to be easy, but I think if people can get that the best thing they can do is really work on themselves.
Mm, yes. I love this. Okay, so you gave us some really good, clear steps on asking for allies, kind of, setting up our container. And then what happens next?
Well, then what happens next is that, you put your dream out, you put your intention out. You say, well, this is what I want. And then you have to let it go. You have to allow the universe to bring it to you or not. Okay? And you have to make sure that you are setting your intentions from the right place. Okay, so I always say don't go from here. Go from here. So, how do you want to feel when you wake up in the morning in 2 months?
Mm,
Like when you get out of bed, how do you want to feel about your life, your community, where you live, your country? How do you want to feel about that? And that is the most powerful thing that you can do because intentions don't manifest from here. It's not an idea. The ideas are part of it. Like you do have to be inspired by, like, oh, I have a great idea. But the idea usually comes after this little thing, this little energy that comes from the heart, like this feeling, this it, it's hard to explain. Okay, it's
yeah.
hard to explain, but it's a part of the emotional center that that pushes its way out into the physical. Okay, and it's a sensation. It's a
Mm,
sensation of wanting to show up. Okay, in a certain way, and then the inspired idea comes right after that, and you go, it's like a it's like a download, it's like an insight, okay,
yeah.
that comes. But those things that are the most powerful come from not just your intellectual or your emotional center, they come from a higher place, like a
Mm,
higher octave. Okay. So that's where we are. And I don't know if Jose talked about this in his interview with you, but where we're headed is to a higher octave of vibration. So we've got one foot in the lower octave and a peak into the higher octave, right? But it's the higher octave that's driving everything right now. So this is why people need to be very disciplined about not going to lower frequency energies, to lower vibrations. So you have to be very disciplined about just keeping your connection to beauty, keeping your connection to, what inspires you, whether it's music or nature or your family, your friends, your loved ones, your talents, whatever it is, you have to be disciplined about keeping that connection. So it's
mm,
a tricky thing right now because yeah, we need to know what's going on, but we don't have to wallow in it.
right. Yeah, I love how you talked about it being a higher octave because it's like a higher frequency.
It's a higher frequency. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not there yet. We're straddling, we're
Yeah.
straddling, but we have to trust that things are being driven by the higher frequency because when
Yeah.
that higher frequency starts to manifest itself, then everything that is not of the higher frequency becomes much more focused, it's like it comes up right in your face. So that's
Yeah.
what's happening right now. It's like, oh, God,
Right, like the
it's all
shadow.
under the surface, but now it's like not.
Yeah. Okay. So, one of the things that I love about you guys and your teachings that I often share with my clients are what the top three frequencies are in the universe, because you're talking about ways in which we can stay in this higher frequency and not be kind of caught up in the fear and all of that. So, I'd love if you just share a couple little things to help people, like quick ways to kind of, stay in a high frequency. And
Okay, so we have an acronym called GLAW, all right? And it is gratitude, love, and awe.
yes, I love it.
GLAW. So gratitude, actually, that's a good thing to talk about. Gratitude, you know, there's always something you can be grateful for. Your cup of coffee in the morning. You can be grateful for the fact that the sun is out today. There's always something you can be grateful for. And that frequency, gratitude is a high level frequency, and that will bring you out of the dumpster really fast. Okay, so
Yeah.
gratitude, I'm a real proponent of gratitude. Love, of course, everybody's got something that they love. All right.
Yeah.
So your pets, or a certain meal or, a certain part of your house, like some beauty, some piece of art. There's
Yeah.
always going to be that you can love, something that you love. Okay. Your family, friends. Um, and then awe, there's always something that you can be awed about. And this is the awe, I think, is the one that we forget most. Okay. So we don't, we're blind, we kind of have blinders on. We get in our car and we drive to the market and it's like you go to the aisles and you put your food in, oh, and you're in a hurry and, you got to get home to feed the cats and, whatever. But what if when you went into the market, you practiced awe? Like, look at all this stuff on all these shelves. You know,
Yeah.
like totally bizarre. I mean, if you were an alien coming to this planet and looking at all the things, it would be awesome. I mean, it would be like, wow, right? Or you
Yeah.
go out in nature and you can be awed by the insects and their life cycle or just how nature knows exactly how to start, growing leaves again in the springtime. So there's always something you can be awed about.
Yeah. And it's so simple. I love your example of the supermarket, right? Because you think it's like, oh, well, I have to see a rainbow, but I haven't seen one in a long time, or,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a rainbow. It can be very mundane.
Yeah.
It can be very mundane. It's like you can be awed by just about anything, really.
Yeah. So gratitude, love, and awe.
Blah.
Yes. Yeah. Gla. This is so good. So everyone, I hope you're writing this down so you can remember, just you can call upon those feelings and then
Right.
it shifts your own vibration.
Yeah. And I mean, I forget all the time. I have days where I'm just like, blinders in and I get grumpy at the end of the day and I have forgotten to drink enough water and just stupid stuff. But really, if you can just even make little post-its for yourself to remind yourself of doing certain things, okay? And keep it simple. I do a weekly wisdoms every Monday morning, kind of setting people up for the week. And my main thing is like creating altars because you have to have a focal point. You got to have some kind of anchor point that represents sort of your grounding, your focus is part of the container, right? And this last week I was really talking about how because the theme for April is about re everything, regrouping, refreshing,
Yeah.
reinventing, restructuring. And so it was like, well, refresh, like
Mm.
this is a good week to refresh things. And it can start small, like just cleaning out a junk drawer, you know,
Yeah.
and like really cleaning it, just like taking the dust off and, going into your pantry and, seeing what's there. So, simple things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's literally clearing space and moving energy, and you can feel the difference.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And you mentioned altars, which I also love. So talk about what that is. Anyone can do this with any, you can
Anyone can
create
do that.
meaning out of any
Yeah,
sacred.
an
Yeah.
altar is basically just creating a central point. It's creating sort of the center of the universe for yourself. Okay. And I mean, people can have a lot of different altars, but create, especially if you are focused on wanting to manifest a particular thing. Okay, so let's say you want a new car. Okay, so you can build an altar that represents your intentions and your container for that new car. Like you can, like have symbols of what you need, what you're going to need to actually have that new car.
Mm.
And then also, one of the main things about setting up an altar is that you always have to represent the four elements, or at least I do. Okay, so something about a medicine wheel, or representing the spirit of air, fire, water, and earth, beauty, flowers, a candle, a feather. So, and then you have a focal point. Basically, that's like your container for putting your prayers in. And you can write things, you can have like a little basket where you set an intention, of what you want for the week. Or like if you want a new car, well, maybe you cut out some pictures out of a magazine of a new car and you set it on your altar. And then you do the practice where you ask for an ally to come in. Okay, who wants to help me to go find a new car? Oh, Hawk. Oh, great. Okay. So then you maybe honor Hawk by putting something on the altar that honors Hawk, and you talk to Hawk. But the main thing about shamanic practices like that is that you can't really get obsessive.
Right.
Like the whole thing of setting intentions to manifest something, you have to really set them and put them out to the universe and let them go. Like you can't just be obsessively, micromanaging by reading them, 100 times a day or whatever. That doesn't really work.
Yeah. So talk about this because I think people get stuck in this.
People get stuck in that a lot,
Yeah.
okay? Because they don't trust. So this has to do with trusting that the universe is going to listen, right? So you've got to you've got to put it out there and then trust that the universe is actually going to listen and is going to bring something to you that you know that you really want.
Right. And it
And
might be
you
different than what you imagine. Is that what you were going to say? Yeah.
exactly. So I have a little funny story about that because many years ago, when we still lived in Berkeley, Jose and I we wanted a new car, okay? And so there was this raffle, and the raffle was expensive. Like you bought a ticket for $100 or something. And in those days it was like, wow, $100 is a lot of money. But we were going to work like all of our prosperity tricks, right? To win this raffle. And I think it was for a BMW or a Mercedes or something like that. And so we pulled out all the stops and we did all the practices, and we put our attention on, winning this raffle. And of course we didn't win it. But within 2 weeks after that, we ended up buying a used car that was a much more of an upscale than we were driving, because we were driving like old Volkswagens, right? And suddenly we had a Saab, you know. And it was much better. It like suited us a whole lot better than,
Right.
a BMW or a Mercedes. And this car, we just loved it. So you might not get exactly what you started out, wanting to manifest for yourself. And this
Yeah.
also goes for business, okay? And it also goes for, your home, like if you're wanting a new home or a different community or group of friends or whatever it is that you need to put in how you want to feel when you're in that car or when you're in that home or when you're working that business
Mm.
or when you're with that group of people. And then you have to let the universe bring you, what it is that you want, even though you don't know exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah. So there's still an action taking on your part, but yet you're inviting spirit, the universe, to kind of take over.
Yeah, and the action is basically, you have to pay attention. You've got to say the prayers. You have to keep focused on it, and you've got to do some action steps, of course,
Mhm.
because it's not just sitting and praying.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do have to do some action steps, and it might be making a few calls, it might be reaching out to people, it might be, observing kind of what shows up and then following through with that.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of times what happens. And we're a very, very impatient society too. It's like,
That's
oh,
true.
got to get done yesterday. It's like, oh, I'm going to go take this workshop for a weekend and then I'm going to, put my shingle out. And people don't realize that the universe has its own timing for things.
Yeah.
And we get frustrated like, oh, that's going to take too long, but sometimes it doesn't. So you have to be ready either way,
Yeah.
for it to manifest either very quickly overnight, practically. When
Mm.
the timing is right, it will happen, and then you have to be ready. And then, there's that whole thing of be careful what you ask for, because
Yeah.
sometimes people ask for things, that they want to manifest, and then they're not really ready to receive them.
Yeah. And then
Oh,
they push
I
them
didn't
away.
want that.
Hmm. Yeah. So I love this. And I think what's so great about what you're sharing is just how we can bring some of these shamanic practices into our everyday life and make it simple to kind of weave the worlds.
Right,
So coming back to where we started in terms of success in business and life, whether we own a business or look at our lives as a business, I'd love to hear more of just kind of the weaving of the practices so that it's all one
right.
kind of
Well, a lot of
integrated.
that is just training. It's an attitude. It's becoming comfortable with the term, even the word business,
Yeah.
and not being resistant to it, not being in fear about it, not looking at it as something out there that
Mm.
other people are doing, and that you have to also do it in your life, but it's not really part of your spirituality, or it's not part of what's fun for you, okay?
Yeah.
And really, it's when you take that word apart, the business, it's like it is your business. This is my business. My life is my business, right?
Yeah.
So it's about really bringing the energy of that word into your life, and then being who you are and trusting that you can manifest from who you are in your business, that you don't have to compromise and go, well, I'm starting a business, which means that I'm going to have to compromise who I am spiritually in order to be successful over here with this business. So it's
Right.
kind of a mindset, really.
And same thing for people. I'm thinking of some of my clients who are in corporate, for example, and feel like they can't fully be themselves right now, or they're worried because if they do, speak out against something that they don't like, then they don't have an income, you know. So what
Right.
would you say to someone like that?
Well, obviously there are people who are in lines of work where it's not practical for them to just up and quit and go, well, I don't like your politics, so I'm out of here, right?
Right.
So what you can do is instead of being in resistance to that, you choose it. Okay? You come from the place of choice, and then you still use the same maps because you make it your business. Okay, so you're still working for some corporation, right, that pays you a paycheck, but you can still make it your business. Okay, so you can have your desk in the office, your place of work, and maybe, you start creating maps around it, you make it your container. And if you do that, then things will start to happen. Like maybe you'll get fired and then you'll find a new, better job, which is more suitable to you. Okay, so there are consequences, to start
Right.
work like this.
Or maybe things will shift within the
Or maybe
company.
things will shift within the company, or maybe you won't care that much anymore about like what goes on out there, because all of a sudden your day-to-day work within that company becomes a lot better for you, a lot
Yeah.
more fun, and somehow, like there's a new team that comes in. So things happen. So
Yeah.
you can take any situation and start to think in terms of that.
Yeah. I think that's really helpful. So looking forward, I know it's like being present and not worrying about where we're going. And yet when we're moving into this higher octave and you talked about it feeling hard, um, or being hard, what's just something we can walk away with to make things a little bit easier?
Just um, be more disciplined about keeping don't know mind, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's so much second guessing right now. Well, if this happens and that's going to happen, well, if this gets put into motion, then that's going to happen. And people are going nuts, with
Yeah.
trying to figure out like, where they're going to be in 2 months or 6 months or a year, right?
Right.
So that you got to be disciplined about like, don't know. Don't know
Yeah.
mind. Just,
Yeah.
nope, we don't know. We don't know.
Right.
But you do know what's in here. You do know what makes you happy. You do know what gives you joy. You do know what you can control in your own personal environment.
Yeah.
So again, it comes all the way back to that. You've got to just take what you have right in front of you.
Yes. Focus on what you can
Focus,
control.
focus on
Yeah.
what you have gratitude for. Focus on what you love, and focus on what you can be awed about
Yeah.
in your life.
I think just those things alone are going to shift the way people are operating, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Yeah. So helpful. And Lena has these amazing forecasts. If you go to thepowerpath.com, I'll put the link and um, you can sign up and so many things that you're leading within the Power Path. So if you want to share anything about that and ways in which we can engage with you.
Well, I guess I'm going to put a little plug in here for, we have this big piece of land in northern New Mexico, and it's just such a special place. And we do solo programs out there where people can go off, for 3 nights on their own and really just recharge from nature and, really transform. But we also have, and this is on our website, we do have a program called the Inner Shaman. And this year, Jose usually takes most of that teaching, but this year it's really going to be about teaching tools for people in these times that are really, really helpful. So
Yeah.
again, it's, shamanism. So it's being out in nature, but people can read about that on the
Yeah.
on the website. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good
So, yeah,
way.
I was going to say, just really nice to reconnect and with people like you who are really ingrained in this work and actually have been mentored, for years and make it so easy. That's what I love about you guys is that you make it really easy for us to kind of tap in and access these tools. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
both very practical. So, if it's not practical, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah,
It's got to be practical.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I love it. Yeah, so I just love you guys. I love what you're doing, and I'm so grateful that you're a part of Manifesting with the Masters. I think this is really helpful for people
Thank you so
today.
much. Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Oh, yay. Thank you all. I want to thank all of you because you're a part of this series as well. We're co-creating with the universe. So Thank you for listening and watching. And I want to encourage you to go to the Power Path, check out all of their offerings. Definitely sign up for their email list because there's just so many amazing insights. And then you'll find out about all of their offerings as well. And if you got value out of this, share this conversation with a loved one or a friend who could benefit from all the awesome insights that Lena shared. And remember GLAW.
And one more thing is that the pivot series that I talked about was a
Yeah.
webinar series last year, but we just edited it to be an online course, and that should be coming out in a few weeks.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
really
gonna be so
excited.
good.
That's right.
Yes. Ooh, exciting. Okay, I love it.
Right.
So much good stuff. So thank you all for being a part of Manifesting with the Masters. We have the conversation continuing in our Facebook group. And again, I'm putting all of the links for Lena and the Power Path so you can be a part of her community as well, which is so awesome. So thank you. And here's to manifesting all that your heart desires. Goodbye, everyone.